Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Phoenix, Arizona, it's time for Phoenix Business Radio, spotlighting the city's best businesses and the people who lead them.
Welcome to We All Serve, a podcast series brought to you by Arizona Employer Support of the Guard and Reserve. I'm your co-host and moderator, Mike Phillips, and I'd like to introduce our other co-host, Dan Irving, Arizona's chairman for ESGR.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Dan. Before introducing our guests, I'd like to thank Karen Nowicki and Phoenix Business RadioX for the opportunity to launch this podcast series. We feel we have a good story to tell, and you are making that possible. So thank you, Karen and Phoenix Business RadioX. Now on to our guests. It's my pleasure to introduce Paul Green, Director of Operations for Angel MedFlight Worldwide Air Ambulance. Thanks for joining us today, Paul.
Thank you. Small correction, I'm actually Chief Development Officer. We have a different person who's Director of Operations. I don't want to step on his toes. Sorry.
Thank you for that correction, Paul.
No problem.
Also with us today via Zoom from Atlanta, Georgia, is John Moyer. John is a certified flight registered nurse with Angel MedFlight. Good evening to you, John, and thanks for joining us.
Good evening. Pleasure to be here.
Dan, help us kick off the discussion today. Tell us about ESGR. What type of organization is it, and what is its mission?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. Well, first off, ESGR, Employer Support for the Guard and Reserve, has been supporting employers, Guard and Reserve service members, and their families for 45 years now. It started in 1972, and at the time, it falls under a program under the Department of Defense. But it's a kind of unique because we're all volunteers. It's volunteer-led, and the volunteers come from all over. We get volunteers from our businesses, from city departments and things like that. Anybody could be a volunteer for us. You don't have to be in the military or prior military. But what we do is we work with employers because employers are really vital to the success of a Guard and Reserve member. When you look at 40%, a little over 40% of our military force today is Guard and Reserve. These are the citizen soldiers that work in our community, right? Work for you. We need employers that understand what they do and support their commitment, because there is a commitment for them. So what we do is we go into an organization, and we do this through training. We train employers. We train service members. We have an awards recognition that we do, so give our service members an opportunity to present awards to their employers that support them and their families. One of the things we do that's really people don't know, everything we do is free, by the way. We don't charge for our services, but we do ombudsman service. We have trained ombudsmen that can go in, and they actually can resolve a lot of the problems that you might have with a service member. That way you don't have to get Department of Labor involved. You don't have to get lawyers involved. They're trained mediators that go in and mediate. And our success rate here in Arizona is a little over 80%. So pretty much 80%, usually it's a misunderstanding or something like that, and it's cleared up. So we provide that service to the employer and the service member. We educate HRs and employers on USERRA, which is the Uniform Service Employment and Reemployment Act of 1994. There's a lot. We have trained people that actually will go in and train for HR folks. We do a lot with SHRM. We train them as far as what the law says and all that. But the bigger thing is, we don't want you to support your service members just because the law says you have to. Okay, the idea is they bring a lot to the organization. They bring a lot to your table in your business, and so we try to foster a culture within the organization to where they support their Guard and Reserve members that they employ, and encourage them to fulfill their commitments. And they do that by supporting them and letting them know that they have a job. One of the biggest things for a deployed member is leaving for 12 months and not knowing whether they have a job. Unlike active duty, they come back, they go back to their military base. Here, they have to go back to their civilian employer. And so I want to say we have such great employers in the state of Arizona. We're very fortunate here because we have lots of employers such as Angel MedFlight that really do support our Guard and Reserve members, and this is great. So hopefully as we go through here, and I want to get a little more into why it's so critical for employers to do this, but we'll get that as we go along. So I'll stop there.
Well, thanks, Dan. And Paul, why don't you fill us in on what Angel MedFlight is? What do you guys do?
Thanks, Mike. So happy to be here, and participate in, this amazing We All Serve podcast. It's really cool just to get the invite. I think that you guys have a saying that says we all serve. And in a way, I think everybody does, because as long as you're supporting members like John Moyer, who is, with us today, everybody has a small piece in making sure that that person is successful. So, it's pretty amazing. At Angel MedFlight, we are an air ambulance. And by that, I mean, we're a fixed wing jet. It's a flying ICU type, configuration. And on that aircraft, we have a critical care flight nurse and a critical care flight paramedic. And what we do is we are really a company that wants to break down that geographical barrier to healthcare. So one of the toughest things is, let's say that, you are on vacation or, you're working in New York and you actually live in Los Angeles, but you get hurt or you fall ill for whatever reason and you have no way of getting back home. You call a company and or your case manager at the hospital that you're at or, wherever that may be, will get you that information. Maybe it's your insurance company. You contact us and we put together a care plan for you that will move you from that hospital that you're in to your next level of care. That could be rehabilitation. That could be a facility for you to get a specialized surgery that's not available at the facility that you're at. And we do that through patient advocacy. And the patient advocacy piece is extremely important. We make sure that you get the insurance covered that is owed to you, that you are a person who is, paying for. You're paying for that insurance. And, more importantly, it's making sure you get the right level of care. I think that a lot of people take for granted that you can just go to a hospital and get the care that you need. Well, that's not necessarily always the case because not every hospital can possibly specialize in every single possible scenario that you might be in from a healthcare perspective. So it is extremely important for your outcome as a patient and for your family to get you to the level of care that is important for you. So let's say you have a specialized, a very rare type of cancer, and the only place that can provide that care for you is MD Anderson out in maybe Houston, Texas. Well, if you live in, Los Angeles, California, you need to get there in some way. And Angel MedFlight is the company that can, make that trip happen for you. And I could really talk about it all day, but, somebody like John Moyer, who we have here, he could really talk about what that care looks like and, explain to us, what a day looks like for a John Moyer, who is actually one of our crew members on that aircraft.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Let's go there, John. Let's talk a little bit about your day-to-day work and also your background in the Guard and Reserve and what does that experience bring to your current occupation?
Well, as far as my background, I've served, I think I'm on 14 years now, between Air Force and the Army. I just switched to the Army as a nurse in the Army. I work critical care with them. I don't do flying with them yet. As far as bringing my military experience to Angel MedFlight, it's just the organization, the structure, the discipline that it takes to make these flights go. Our day is just filled, we're notified by, dispatcher or our flight code of a patient assignment. It's just starting the process, researching the patient, reading their chart and everything. To give you a basic idea of what's going on with that patient, if we have any questions, it's just one phone call to our flight coordinators. They can answer pretty fast. If they don't know the answer, they'll call a facility. But it's just doing the transport from there. Just basically, like Paul said earlier, we're a flying intensive care unit that there's, very few patients that we don't fly as far as, I know we don't do neonates yet, but they're talking about it and everything. But it's just, I don't know. But it's just the structure of Angel MedFlight. It's just up to everything. Sorry.
John, can I ask you a question? So do you feel that your military experience has helped you and given you an advantage in the position you're at now?
Oh, definitely. It's leadership. With the military thing, it's like, anybody that serves in the military, you start right from basic training. Once you're out of there, you're learning about leadership and how to follow and being part of the flight team, being the nurse of that flight team with a paramedic. It's just the leadership that it takes from the time we arrive at a hospital, taking control of that patient. Because a lot of times the nurses have grown attached to that patient, and you're stepping in and taking over for them, and just being able to take that leadership and take over, and knowing that the patient's going to be safe and flown, to where they need to be for, their next journey of care.
Yeah, to elaborate on that a little bit, we get a lot of people that, reach out to us after a flight, or they send us a message, whether it's via a survey or whatnot. And they, one of the biggest things they say is that I knew the minute that your team walked into the door that everything was going to be okay. And that really speaks a lot to the leadership of, what John has learned, as part of the military, is not how to take charge of a situation just to take charge of it, but how to take charge of a situation the right way so that people understand that you are putting yourself in a position that your authority and your knowledge and your ability to control that situation makes that situation better, calms people down, and makes them understand that what John and his team are about to carry out is not going to be another burden on you that's part of your healthcare journey, but is going to be a start of something completely new where you feel like your next steps are going to all be positive steps. And that's extremely important because they're not dealing with, the flu. They're dealing with very complicated medical situations, and having somebody with a leadership capability, like John, puts our patients at ease and puts their family members at ease and puts everybody in a much better mindset on a go-forward basis.
There's no doubt the military service adds a lot of insight, I think, into business operations and caregiving. And Dan, you bring that background too. You're a career National Guards person. You want to talk a little bit about your career and what drew you to ESGR after you retired from the military?
Well, I retired with about 38 years, and I was a full-time technician at the Arizona Air National Guard. I spent the last 4 years as the state senior enlisted leader to the 2-star adjutant general here. I did that for the last 4 years, which I got into a lot of policies and stuff like that, proper training and utilization. Well, one thing that I've seen over the 38 years of my service is I've seen firsthand where, as you say, with the leadership, that's exactly what we do. We take a person who's 21, 22 years old and send them on a flight across the world, and they are responsible for that jet and bringing that crew back. That's the responsibility on them. And so they do make decisions, but one of the big things about the military, too, is they can't fail. They don't fail, okay? And if someone stumbles a little bit, there's somebody there to pick them up, and they do that in their civilian life as well and when they come to an organization. But what I've seen is we've had a lot of people, a lot of my service members have come to me and actually got out of the Guard, and the reason that they got out of the Guard was because of their employer. Now, not that the employer was giving them a hard time. It just started becoming a hassle for them because the employer kind of made it more of a hassle than it was fun. You know what I mean? Supportive. It was more of a hassle. And they would actually leave the Guard because, let's face it, that's their bread and butter. That's what puts money on their table. That's what supports their family, is them working for the civilian sector out there. So I've seen a lot of that. But the reason I did this was, it was kind of funny. They came to me and said they needed a central area chair to lead the central area, which is the Phoenix-Maricopa area of the committee. And they didn't have anybody for about a year and a half. So they asked me to come in, and I never say no. It's a good cause. I've dealt with them as a service member for almost 30 years. Okay. ESGR. So I've known them for a very long time. And so when they asked me to do it, I jumped in and did it. Just a little background on me. I'm terrible. I retired in 13. I failed retirement miserably. I think I was retired for a whole 6 months, and I was sitting in 110 degree temperature in my living room because I didn't want to go out. And so I ended up going back to work. And at the same time, that was the same time that they had approached me on ESGR. So I said, yeah, I'll do it. Well, then before you know it, the state chair was supposed to have another 3-year term, and he decides he's leaving. He's moving out of state. So I put in for the job, and I was appointed. So that's how I got into it. But I think I give back, and I'm very mission driven, and I think this is important. My emphasis is on employers. I have people on the committee that like to talk to the military members, and that's great. So we have volunteers that really specialize in different areas. But again, we like to spend a lot of time with the employers. We bring employers out. We do things with employers, such as John, if you or Paul, if you or John, wanted to come out to one of the bases to see what your guardsmen did on a weekend, or a Black Hawk flight, or a tanker, we call it a boss lift. We take you up on a tanker. You get a mission brief. You can actually see what your civilian employee does when they're not working for you, right? The type of training they get and what they do. The military today is high tech, so it's not the same as it was 20 years ago, and so they bring a lot of that knowledge and stuff to the table. But that's why I got into it. I just, I think that it's important. And I can tell you this, and I can reassure you this, that the employers like you play a very important role in the success of these Guard and Reserve members. I can't emphasize that enough. I mean, we have an all-volunteer force here, right? And if the employers decide, you know what, we're tired of this, we're not going to hire Guard and Reserve people, what's going to happen? Guard and Reserve members are going to leave because they got to work, right? And that was another thing that I've realized from my 38 years. I would have part of the responsibility through a USERA is for Guard members to tell their employees that they're in the Guard. You'd be surprised how many that won't tell them, they're afraid to tell them. And that's where we try to come in and get the employer involved, maybe get commanders, bring them into a breakfast with the boss. We do breakfast with the bosses where we'll bring them in and introduce them to, say, one of the commanders, maybe take a tour and do some things like that. So we try to close that gap and really try to cultivate that culture of support from the employers. And I'd say that's our top number one mission.
And Paul, you touched about the impact that veterans have on your business and active Guard and Reserves members have on your business earlier, but it really is. It's a really significant synergistic relationship. The background, the skill set that the military brings into an operation like Angel MedFlight. Talk a little bit about the ways that you support the veterans and the Guards and Reserves in your company.
Absolutely. And, Dan was just touching on, how important the employers are to the employees, or as we call them, our team members. And, I think it goes both ways. Our team members like John, reservists are just as important as we are to them. We couldn't do what we do without them. And, allowing an employee who serves to be a part of your organization, one, it's not just the right thing to do, but it gives everybody the ability to know that they're a part of something. And I think that's what everybody is looking for, is they want to be a part of an organization that believes in them, that trusts in them, and allows them to participate in activities that are not necessarily directly related to their job. And I think that as an organization and us allowing our team members to do that, it's really special. It's an amazing thing. And one of the things that's really unique about Angel MedFlight is we don't require that our employees that are our clinicians that, like John, that work on our aircraft have to live here in Arizona, even though we're an Arizona-based company and we're proud of that. He actually lives in Atlanta, Georgia, so he is dialing in via Zoom right now to have this conversation with us. And, he's a reservist, and, he might be in the state of Georgia, and he gets to participate in all of his, local, reservist activities, but he gets to do that remotely. And I think that's something that's, really key to this type of relationship, is that it allows that and it fosters that. And I would encourage anybody who's in the reserves to look for companies that are similar to Angel MedFlight that you can work for, that you don't have to work in that state, because it gives you flexibility and it gives you the ability to do things that you may not find in your local state. And nothing wrong with that. But, everybody's situation is a little bit different, and John can talk to you guys about his schedule and the way that it works. And, it's very unique. I wish I had John's schedule, to be honest. It's pretty amazing. He's got a fancy, wainscoting type wall behind him. He gets, he works a schedule, and I can't say exact. I'll let him talk about it. But he has numerous days off in a row because he's on shift with us for a long period of time. And he literally lives with that aircraft as he cruises around the country while he's on shift. So he's our employee, basically, like 24 hours a day for like a minimum of, I think, like 7 days, something like that. And right. You get a large number of days off. And that's really works well if somebody who's in the reserves and things like that, and what's really cool, and I don't know how many employers do this, but, when we have scheduling practices and things like that ensure that, as a reservist like John, you get the ability to participate in all of those, activities that you need to participate in. We actually have an employee right now who's on her 12-month deployment. I don't know if I'm allowed to say where she goes, so we'll leave it. But, you have that ability to do that. And, we compensate the difference between their regular pay and their military pay while they're out. I think that's a pretty amazing thing. If I was a reservist, I would want that, because that's a big thing, because I might have to go out and be gone for 30 days. If I'm out in the, doing military duty for 30 days and I get paid significantly more, that might be a huge burden on my family. Well, if you're compensating that difference, it's no longer a burden on your family, and you get benefit continuation when you're an employee that is on active duty. And that's extremely important too, because that's another burden that your family might have to undergo if, your spouse does not have insurance coverage or cannot, help out with the family. So there's all these things that employers can do. And I don't know how many of them do it the way that we do, but I would hope that a lot of them do that kind of thing, for their team members, because you're getting a great team member. I'm not saying that, John is better than somebody else because he's a reservist, but, he likes to think he is. So you can see, like, yes, I am. And,
yeah,
you get you get an employee that, they know what they're doing. They have been trained a certain way. They have leadership skills. They've got all these amazing attributes that, people look for in an employee. And that's a pretty special thing. And I think that anybody should welcome that into their organization. And you get, a unique take on a situation for like us. When John is on an aircraft, it's very different than if he was working at a hospital ICU. If he's at a hospital ICU and there's a problem, he can turn around or push a button and 30 people rush in and be like, how can we help? When he's on that aircraft, it's himself and his partner that are on that aircraft. They're the only two people. So what they learn as part of their military training is how he can be really calm under pressure. And I think that's extremely important in what we do as an organization. And his calmness is going to directly affect the people that are around him. And that is going to have an effect on those people, as well as him with the rest of the team members. I mean, it's going to translate directly to other team members. And that's a skill that, that's hard skill to teach people. You either have it or you don't. And you can foster it and make it better. And I think that's one of the really, amazing things that I think that you bring to the table when you have that military experience.
Yeah. And Paul, I want to thank you for that, because normally when we're in front of employers, this is what we talk about, right? We talk about what the Guard and Reserve members bring to the table. But you did such a nice job. We need to get you as a volunteer for us, because you said it, and it comes better. It's better said by you because you're doing it. Your company is doing it, and I think that's fantastic. And again, that's the other reason why we wanted you here today.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, and you were talking about those boss lifts. I got to go on one last year. I actually made sure and changed my schedule at the last minute so I could fly back from Seattle just to do that. And I landed the night before, I don't know what time at night, it was super late, just so I could do that in the morning because I wasn't going to miss it. Yeah. Like, there was no chance that I was going to miss that. And I think that if you're part of an organization here in the Valley that supports your reservist and you have that opportunity, take it. Or if you want to do that, and I think that's one of those things where, like, especially like we have, as our organization, we don't just have reservists, we have a lot of ex-military, employees as well. And that's, if they got to go on the chance, like, you get to relive that experience that you've had your entire life when you were, in the military. And I think that that's something that I loved it, and I'm not military in any way. And so I think that if you can get some of those employees to back that, you can foster better relationships, and maybe they can talk to people that they know that are maybe reservists and things like that, and get people excited about it, and get people excited about how you as an organization can bring these types of employees into your organization. And, everything that happens at your company is all about fostering a employee-based system that has moral values, that they have buy-in on what they're doing every day. They believe in what they're a part of. And the more people you can get involved in that, the better off you're going to be, because they're going to help you with what your mission is and what your goal is as a company. Ours happens to be patient advocacy. Somebody else might be building, parts for the space shuttle. Well, I guess not space shuttle anymore because they took that away from us. But, something, whatever it is, maybe working down the street at Intel, you have to believe in what you're doing for work. And I think that as you have programs like you guys have, whether it's the boss lift or the breakfast that you were talking about, those kind of things will really get people to have buy-in and want to participate, because they have the opportunity to not just know what this person does, but they have a good, deep understanding of what this person does and how they can help out and how they can, foster what is happening within that organization.
One of the things you brought up was there's a lot of good employers in Arizona, as I said before, but there are some that are struggling a little bit with this. And we have volunteers that work for organizations that don't mind sharing. So we take that extra step. If someone wants to do a Veterans Infinity group or something like that, and they're having trouble getting started, we've got people that have done it in their organizations, and they can help get that, that other employer on the right track and get that up for them. So we help in those ways as well. But I think what you said is right on. We get these people, we have to get them involved, right? And they got to know. One of the things that I can't stress enough, when I'm in front of an employer group, one of the questions I ask them is, how many veterans do you employ? And you know that they can always tell us how many veterans they can employ. When I say, well, how many Guard and Reserve members do you employ? All the hands go down. And I'm talking, these are some HR in the group, right? And for some, and I usually tell them, I say, those are the folks you should be tracking, because you have veterans, and we support veterans, by the way. We always support our veterans. But the Guard and Reserve members have a military commitment. And the Guard members have two commitments, because they can do state. They can be mobilized by the governor to do fires, to do help with the COVID. And they can be called up by the federal to go overseas, 12-month deployments, those type of things. So they really have two roles. The reserves is a federal role. They play the federal role. So now I just had a moment here.
That's okay.
Where was I going with that?
Yeah.
Well,
I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
So.
Well, there's a personal side to this.
Somebody tell me that. Go ahead, John.
There's a personal side to this, and John, you certainly experienced that. That's a lot. The commitment to the Guard and the Reserve, the commitment to your company. That's a lot of responsibility. And John, talk a little bit about that responsibility, and also how working for a company like Angel MedFlight that really values veterans. How does that help you perform your job and take a little bit of that stress off?
Well, I think the big thing was, you had mentioned earlier, a lot of people, when they go to apply to a new job, they don't want to tell them that they're in the Guard and Reserves because of fear of they're not going to hire me because of the obligation. And I was very hesitant. It was 4 years ago, November, when I started with Angel MedFlight, and I was sitting at the conference table, and I'm like, I just got to tell you, I'm in the reserves. So, and my supervisor's face just lit up. She goes, "That is wonderful," and everything. And from that point on, Angel MedFlight just really surprised me, how they've gone above and beyond. And with ESGR, I never heard of ESGR before. And I think it was 3 years ago, my commander on one of my reserve weekends had brought it up, saying, "Hey, if you have an employer, that, you want to recognize for what they do, for the reservists." Angel MedFlight, I didn't even hesitate. I'm like, I have to, nominate Angel MedFlight for this, the awards and stuff. And it's just what they do for me is, it actually takes the burden away, or the stress, I should say, more of the stress, serving in the military and having a civilian job, knowing that I'll be taken care of, and my family will be taken care of if I do get deployed and stuff. But Angel MedFlight, like Paul was saying, I'm on the road, 8 days, out flying around the United States, and if my reserve weekend falls during the week, Angel MedFlight flies me home commercially from wherever I'm at on Friday, so I can do my drill weekend, and it's at their expense, and then fly me back out to work on Monday. If, my 7 days, if my drill weekend falls between there, and I don't get dirty looks, I don't get anything. It's just like, we're going to get you home. They flew me home from Haiti one time on a Friday. They're like, "We'll get you home." And they're like, I got like an hour and a half sleep. I'm like, "I don't care, get me home." But they didn't even hesitate. I've even had one time where one of our former TOs, I was running late, and he actually had a nurse meet me at the airport to take my patient, had a town car waiting for me at the airport. Or I'm sorry, at the airport I was at, ride me to the commercial. I was actually in Scottsdale there, and a town car, rushing me off to the airport because it was the last flight out on Friday night, just to get me home on time. But Angel MedFlight, they've gone above and beyond, and I've never had an employer like this, in all my military career where I don't have to make up weekends. I had one where I gotta, it's your weekend to work. You have to make it up. You have to work Wednesday, Thursday, to make up for that Saturday and Sunday that you're away. Angel MedFlight doesn't require that, and I think just a lot of employers knowing this, that you do all this extra stuff for your employees, they're going to work harder for you. I brag about Angel MedFlight and what they do for me and my military, obligation. It's just, I'm so proud to work for Angel MedFlight like that. And I'm not asking for a raise or anything, I'm just saying. But Angel MedFlight is, I've never had an employer like this before where I've have been so supportive. I even have had a supervisor push, that's why I switched services. She pushed to get me commissioned in the Army, because I was just going to let it be. And she's like, "No, you're a nurse, you need to be an officer and all this stuff." And, what employer does that?
That's really, that's good, John. Hey, John, you hit on something there, though, which is what we hear. And when I was deployed, and I saw it firsthand as well, when you deploy or you go out on the road somewhere, whether it's your civilian job or your military job, there's a certain amount of stress and a certain amount of things that we worry about, right? And it takes away from the mission. It takes away from what we really are going overseas to do. And with you just told me, that burden, that one stressor of knowing that your family's going to be taken care of and that, you're going to have a job when you get back. Isn't that one less thing now you have to worry about? You can focus on mission and doing what you need to do over there. Absolutely. And then get home.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
And that's what I've experienced as well. And I wish I can say that happens to all our Guard and Reserve members, but some of them do have some issues still. So we just need to keep spreading the word. And I'm so glad you brought that up because, you can tell you're excited for working. You're proud of working for this company. I'm sure the phones are going to light up now, so that you're going to have people wanting to work for you.
Hey, so, bring it on! I think the more the merrier. And I think that just as much as John is proud to work for us, we're proud that he works for us.
Sure.
And we just actually had a town hall meeting this morning, and I expressed how proud I was to work for the organization. And it's not so much that I work for Angel MedFlight; it's that I work with all the other team members like John, and everybody else that we work with. You don't necessarily have to believe in the name of the place that you work, but you have to believe in their mission, and you have to believe in the other employees that you work with. And I think that's extremely important, and that's how you should feel about your workplace. You should be proud of it. They should support you in whatever you're going to do, regardless of whether it's work related. You can't just work for somebody that just treats you like another number, and I think that's extremely important. And, it's, look for that. And if you're an employer that's trying to put something together like us, to have an employee like John that's extremely proud of the way that we treat him when he, needs to go on and you're having a hard time, who cares? Have a hard time. It's not easy. There's going to be growing pains with any organization when you start putting together a program that helps out your fellow reservists. If you're honest with them and they understand where you're coming from and they can help you grow, do it and start growing it. Everybody has growing pains, but that's going to make you better as an organization as you work with your reserve members and you help them help you become a better organization.
Right. And, and it doesn't matter the size of the organization. The bigger organizations can probably absorb it a little easier, but I got to tell you, here, about 2 years ago, there's a small company here in Chandler, and I had the honor of presenting them a Patriot Award. Okay. So it's about I think it was 4 guys, and the office was at the house. So they didn't have a big office. It was at the house. So I went to go present this thing. Well, when I heard the story and how this guy deployed, he was in the Army Guard. He deployed for 12 months. And while he was deployed, his boss kept connections with the family, also kept connections with him. So they actually talked. He was his foreman, by the way. And I asked him, I says, so how did that affect your organization? He says, well, it was bad, but he's worth it. We support him 100%. We know he had to do his commitment, and, he was back, and it was funny because I showed up to the door and I was holding the award in my hand, and it was in a white box, and he answers in a pair of shorts because he didn't know I was coming. And his guys were in the kitchen, and he says, well, are you the pizza man? I said, no, I'm not the pizza man, but I've got something for you. So it was kind of fun, but there's a small organization that reached out overseas. They communicated at least twice a month. And when the service member came back, he felt like he was still part of the company. He knew what was going on, but this was his key guy. And that's what really got to me, because, I hear so many times that, well, we're a small company. We really can't have people leaving. There's always things that we can do to help and make that work. And so I just wanted to throw that out there. But you guys, there's a reason why you guys were nominated for that award. So
yeah, and like you said, size is, we're 95 employees.
Yeah.
And a good portion of those employees, probably 50%, it's about 50-50. I don't know the exact numbers, but about 50-50 of people that don't live here in Arizona, and then that people that do live here in Arizona. And sure, size is going to be maybe an impediment to you to be a part of something like this and to be able to easily cover shifts and do things like that. But nothing is easy. So why not invest in your team members? Why not invest in your employees, and do something that is going to be so important to themselves and their families? Because, the whole goal of having an employee is that they have tenure at your company, that they want to work there, and that they are not going to get all the education or learn everything and then just quit on you. So, invest in your employees.
Absolutely.
And they're going to be with you for a very long time. And every single year that they're with you and every single year that they work with their fellow employees, the other employees are going to learn from them. It's going to grow and it's going to grow. And you know what? In a few years, like, I don't know, John, how many years are you with us now? 4 years, 5 years?
4 years.
4 years.
4 years.
I can tell you that the impact that he's probably made on his fellow team members is so much greater than his first year. And everything that he's learned and that he's shared with them and that they have shared with him, you know, they're getting stronger and better every single day. And that's extremely important. And you need to foster those kind of relationships so you can build a quality team. And the longer that team works together, the better they're going to be.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the coolest things about ESGR is it celebrates those relationships and it provides a forum to do that. And so many times you go out to for a Patriot Award or another one of the ESGR awards, and you see the emotion in the room between the employer and the employee. And there's really, I mean, not to over dramatize it, but there's some really love and deep respect there with those relationships. And Dan, talk a little bit about that function of ESGR and why that's important. You know, to actually sit down around a microphone like this or in a room like this and talk about those relationships, because it does have meaning and it does have power, and it does make organizations and employees stronger.
Oh, absolutely. And our awards program is designed to do that, right? And when we present the awards, you're exactly right. I've done enough of them to know that you could just see the connections in that room. And sometimes the CEOs will even fly in for it. It just depends. But they're very supportive. And it really goes a long way. And I've talked to guardsmen afterwards or reservists, and they appreciated it. They said, "Hey, you know what? My boss really appreciated it." I gave an award to we did 2 Patriot Awards. They were partners. You know that they wouldn't put those awards down. They just would not put them down. They held them the whole time. I said, "You can put those down, or I can put." No, we're going to hold them. And they got the pictures and they got all the stuff, and you could just see the big smiles. And when I present, I like to let the service member say some words, because again, coming from the service member, that really means something. He's thanking his boss and his company. And I think it goes a long way. And then what we'll do is we'll start working with that employer and get them, you know, into a boss lift or something like that. And it just really brings that relationship, so they really have a better understanding of what they do, because it's really about that understanding. But you know, as you pointed out, Paul, Guard and Reserve members bring a lot to the table, and the other things that are really that we don't think about a lot of times is, you know, number one, they're physically fit, right? Because they get PT all the time. They have to be physically fit to be in there.
Yes, we do.
Yes, you do, don't you?
Yep.
I did.
You can't tell, but he looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger without his flight suit on.
Well, I did 38 years of that. I know, but one of the things that they bring too is they're drug free, right? Because they have drug tests, random drug tests. That's a plus. A lot of our employees who are in IT and security, they love that. You know, they want these people. A lot of our military today in the Guard and Reserve have clearances, have secret clearances, right? So they've been vetted. But the leadership's the big thing. The leadership is what we drive into them from day one. They're good followers. They got a very global perspective on things, because they see a lot. Diversity, they work in a very diverse environment. And so that's another big thing that they bring. And I know you've all said this, but just a couple things that I wanted to add in there that, you know, they really do bring a lot. And what I find is that most of them, because of their leadership ability, because I've hired a couple, and they actually take and mentor the folks around them. Priorities. Sometimes priorities aren't. In the military, priorities is everything, right? It's a priority. And you know what that means. You know what accountability means. You know what integrity means. And so there's a lot of mentoring go on, because we mentor in the military. And so, you know, there's just so much we could talk about, and we'll probably talk more at other segments. But, you know, I really appreciate it coming from you, because I want employers out there to understand there are employers that are doing this. And it takes leadership to do this, right? Leadership's not easy. Okay. If you think your job is easy as a leader, you're probably not doing it right, because it does take work. It's not always what's convenient. It's what's the right thing to do, right? And you said that as well. So I do appreciate that. And Mike, you have something?
Yeah, I'd like to turn it to John again, and you're balancing a lot day to day. You have a very critical job in the civilian community, a critical job in your military commitment, and what keeps you going? What drives you to maintain kind of those dual roles where clearly you don't have to, but you continue to do it?
It's just my drive to serve the military. I like the organization and the brotherhood that the military brings, and just being able to bring that into my civilian life, and taking it to work and stuff like that, and having the camaraderie that I do with the medic and the pilots, because the two pilots we fly for, at the same time, and for the week and everything.
Yeah, I'd kind of really like to know, John, like, what drives you as a RN? It's not easy to become a registered nurse. 2, it's even harder to become a critical care flight nurse. 1, why do you like it so much? And 2, what drives you to continue to do that every day? And you've now done this for 4 years with us as an organization, and previously before that, I don't know how many years, but what keeps you going every day? Why are you going to work every day to take care of some of the sickest patients that anybody would ever possibly see as a nurse?
It's just passion, servant fellow man type thing. One thing that to quote my mom, she always says, I'm earning my wings, by doing what I do and stuff like that. But it's just, I think it's just the love, just helping people and getting them, especially with flight nursing, we're taking them from a bad situation and taking them to another phase in their life. May it be rehab. We do a lot of brain and spinal cord injuries. We do a lot of anorexic patients and stuff like that. But just getting them to that next journey of their life, and I know it sounds kind of corny, but even people that are, we do fly some hospice patients and cancer patients, but it's just getting them, to where they want to be with their loved ones and stuff. And it's just that reward that you get when you do take those people. I've gone into hospital rooms, and the patient family members, they just break down, start crying, because they know, things are going to change, for the better, or, or get them to where they need to be. It's sometimes it gets very emotional. It's hard not to, let the tears flow and, stuff like that. But it's just a very rewarding field. I come from a background. I've been a nurse for 19 years. I did 12 years in the ICU, 4 in the ER, and I'm at a point now where it's just like, I take those experiences and bring them into flight nursing, because we get a gamut of all different age groups and diseases. There's times I'm looking diseases up, because I've never heard of it, because it's just, there's so many things out there that every day, even a nurse, things I've never heard of, that, I'm flying patients with, very rare diseases and stuff like that. They're not contagious, but it's just rewarding getting them to where they need to be, and Angel MedFlight, I can do that, in flight nursing.
That was very well said. Thank you.
Yeah, thank both of you guys for being involved in a business that's so critical. It's literally changing lives every day for the better, and that's a wonderful thing. And I know, Dan and I are thrilled to be involved in an organization to help support your relationships and your business practices, and in some small way help facilitate what you do. So, and thanks again for your time here today also.
No, absolutely. Thank you guys for inviting us, and allowing me and John to come and talk about a little bit about what we do, and how your guys' organization impacts not just our organization, but impacts, reserve members like John and, all the other reserve members that are here in Arizona. It's a lot of these things, a lot of people don't hear about. And I didn't know what ESGR was until Angel MedFlight. I had no idea. I knew that there was plenty of people in the reserves. I have a couple of really good friends that were in the reserves, but I didn't know what ESGR was. And, I think that it's extremely important to get these kind of messages out there, to have these kinds of conversations with not just reservists like John, but with employers, and get people to really understand all these positive things that come out of these types of conversations, and get more people involved, get more employers involved, and have more, reserve members have these conversations with their employers so that they can really start doing something and build this, camaraderie between their reserve employee as well as, their organization. Right. Because it probably doesn't exist, because like John was saying, not all of his employers, wanted to treat his situation the same as we treat it. And, they should. Everybody should be treating the situation the same. This is a proud moment for you as an employer, and as well as your employee, to be a part of an organization that, applauds them for their service and for what they are doing for, not just us. And I think a lot of people think that, like, you're doing it for your country, but you're doing it for your fellow human being, your fellow, neighbor, things like that. The National Guard is deployed for all kinds of different things. It's just not, what people traditionally think about it is you're going overseas to fight a war. You could be doing all kinds of things. The flooding, National Guard comes in and helps out with cleanup, things like that. Like this is an extremely important piece of your ecosystem as somebody who lives in your state, and the people that are going to come and help you out in natural disasters and all these different types of things. And that's extremely important, and so get involved, talk to your employer, do the right thing to help spread the word that organizations like this exist and are here to help you out, to put employees like John in a situation where they're proud to work for an organization that is proud to have them work for it.
Yeah. Paul, I just want to say, I want to thank you and John for being here today. And I also want to say one of our challenges is, and why we're doing this podcast, is with the COVID, it's very difficult for us to get into employers. We used to be able to do face-to-face. We used to invite them in and get a group of them. We used to do our boss lifts and things like that. So now we're having to look more at the virtual side of it, right? And this is one of the reasons we came to Karen, and Karen was gracious enough to help us out. And so we really appreciate Karen. We really do. But I just wanted to say thank you to you and John for Angel MedFlight, because you're doing an outstanding job supporting our Garden Reserve. And I'm sure you're supporting the veterans just as well. So I want to thank you both for that. And this is why we say we all serve, right? We all serve. We just serve at different levels and different capacities.
Absolutely.
But we all serve.
Absolutely. Thank you. And, if you need a spokesperson, John is clearly very charismatic on camera, and he's doing an excellent job. So reach out to him, and he'll get better with time. And you could be like John Moyer, ESGR reservist extraordinaire, and have him have your conversations.
Absolutely,
have conversations with him directly. I think that his perspective is so unique that you could do something that's very unique that you haven't done yet. And maybe put something together where shoot a video, something where you can get it in front of these people to show his enthusiasm for what he's doing as a reservist is infectious. And
it is.
Let's take something like that and put it in front of people so they can feel that enthusiasm and be like, wow, how can I not be a part of this? And he's right there. He's ready to go. And thank you so much, John, for being a part of this. When I asked him, I was like, I don't know if he's going to do it, but he was super enthusiastic about it. And, I'm super proud that he agreed, and he's, had this conversation with us here today.
And John, we will reach out to you.
Oh, I appreciate it.
And also, just to let you know, there is a ESGR committee in your state also.
Okay.
So we're in all 50 states, territories, and district.
Thanks, everybody. This was a great conversation. It's great getting to know you guys a little bit. Thanks for all you do. Thanks for supporting ESGR. And well, let's do it again sometime soon.
Anytime.
Absolutely.